The empty chair. Daniel stared at the single unlit candle on the kitchen table, his phone showing 11:47 p.m., and realized his son had no idea today was his birthday. The house felt cavernous in its silence. Daniel Martinez sat alone at the dining table he'd spent 3 hours setting that afternoon, the good plates, cloth napkins folded into triangles the way his late wife Maria used to do, even candles he'd bought specifically for tonight. Everything perfect. Everything waiting, everything wasted. His phone buzzed, another text from his son, Jason, the third one that evening. Dad, game's going into overtime. This is insane. Brady's team is down by 3. Daniel's thumb hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to type so many things. It's my birthday. I told you this was important. I needed you here. But instead he typed what he always typed. Sounds exciting. Be safe. He set the phone down and looked at the cold lasagna in the center of the table. Lasagna, Jason's favorite. Daniel had started making it at noon, layering the pasta sheets with ricotta and homemade sauce, the smell filling the house with a warmth that now felt like mockery. When he'd called it an event 3 weeks ago, he thought he was being clever, low pressure. Jason was 17, navigating his senior year, college applications, and a social life that seemed to expand daily like some unstoppable force. Daniel didn't want to guilt trip him, didn't want to be the needy dad who made everything about himself. I'm planning something for the 12th, he'd said casually over breakfast. An event, just you and me, really important that you're there. Jason had nodded, his attention half on his phone. Sure, Dad, the 12th, got it. You'll need to be home by 6, can you make sure you're free? Yeah, I'll put it in my calendar. Daniel had watched his son type something into his phone, feeling a small flutter of relief. He'd been planning this for months, not just the dinner but what he was going to tell Jason, about college, about the future, about the things Daniel had learned in the 16 years since Maria died, raising their boy alone, making mistakes and corrections and more mistakes. 53 felt like a milestone worth acknowledging, even if Daniel wasn't the celebrating type. But more importantly, it felt like the right time to have certain conversations with his son. The kind of conversations that needed the right atmosphere, the right moment, the right intention behind them. That morning, Daniel had woken up with cautious optimism. He'd taken the day off work, something he rarely did. He'd gone to 3 different stores to find the ingredients he needed. He'd cleaned the house. He'd even brought down the photo albums he'd been meaning to show Jason, pictures of Maria from before Jason was born, stories Daniel wanted to share. At 5:30 p.m. he'd sent Jason a reminder text, don't forget about tonight, see you at 6. At 5:47 p.m. Jason had called. Daniel could hear the chaos in the background, teenage voices, laughter, the hollow echo of a gymnasium. Dad, hey, so Brady just invited me to his game tonight. It's the championship and his parents got me a ticket and... Jason, we have plans tonight. I told you this was important. I know, but can we do your thing tomorrow? This is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Brady's been my best friend since 5th grade and... Jason. Please, Dad, I promise I'll make it up to you. Whatever this event is, we can do it this weekend. Brady's counting on me to be there. Daniel had stood in the kitchen, spatula in hand, looking at the table he'd already set and felt something crack inside his chest. He could have said it then, could have just told Jason the truth. It's my birthday, I'm turning 53, I wanted to spend it with my son. But pride or fear or some toxic combination of both kept the words locked behind his teeth. How important is this to you? He'd asked instead. Really important, Dad, like really. The pleading in Jason's voice had done what it always did. Daniel had spent 17 years trying not to be the father who disappointed his kid, who let him down, who wasn't there when it mattered. Maybe that had turned him into the father who couldn't say no. Okay, Daniel had heard himself say, go to the game. Seriously, Dad, you're the best. I'll be home by 11, I promise, and this weekend we'll do whatever you want, I swear. The line had gone dead and Daniel had stood there with his phone in his hand, feeling foolish and small and unbearably alone. Now, 6 hours later, the food was cold and Daniel was confronting a truth he'd been avoiding for months. Somewhere along the way, he'd become invisible to his son. Not in the dramatic, crisis intervention kind of way. Jason wasn't troubled or distant or disrespectful. He was just busy, occupied, living the life of a normal 17-year-old who had friends and interests and a world that increasingly didn't center around his father. Daniel understood this intellectually. He'd read the parenting books, listen to the podcasts during his lunch breaks. Teenagers individuate, they pull away, it's healthy, it's normal, it's necessary. But understanding it didn't make it hurt less. He picked up one of the photo albums he'd left on the table. The leather cover was worn soft with age. Inside, Maria smiled from every page at their wedding on their honeymoon in Cancun, pregnant with Jason, holding newborn Jason in the hospital. So young, God, they'd both been so young. I don't know how to do this part, Daniel whispered to her picture, the part where he doesn't need me anymore. His phone buzzed again, another text from Jason, this one with a photo attached. Jason and Brady, arms around each other's shoulders, faces painted in their school colors, grinning like they just conquered the world. We one's going for pizza with the team, home by midnight, love you. Daniel felt the sting behind his eyes and blinked it away. He typed back, congrats, proud of you. He almost added it's my birthday to the end of the message. His finger hovered over the letters, but what would that accomplish now? Guilt, apologies, a rushed, awkward acknowledgement that would make them both feel terrible. No, Daniel deleted the unsent words and put his phone face down on the table. The candles had melted slightly in their holders, never lit. Daniel began clearing the table, wrapping up food that would become leftovers, putting away plates that had never been used. With each trip to the kitchen, the house seemed to grow quieter, the silence pressing against his ears like a physical thing. He was loading the dishwasher when he heard his own voice in his head, Maria's words from years ago, you can't martyr yourself and then resent people for not reading your mind. She'd said that during one of their early fights before Jason was born. When Daniel had cleaned the entire apartment and then been sullen when she hadn't immediately noticed or thanked him. She'd been right then, and the ghost of her wisdom was right now. He should have just told Jason it was his birthday, should have been direct instead of vague. An event could have meant anything, a work thing, a meeting, a dinner with friends. How was Jason supposed to know? But even as Daniel thought this, another part of him countered. Jason should have asked, should have been curious, should have wanted to know what was important enough for his father to specifically request his presence. The dishwasher was humming and Daniel was wiping down the counters when he heard it, the distant sound of his mother's voice in his memory from his own childhood. Parents and children wound each other without meaning to. It's the price of love. He'd wounded Jason by being absent when Daniel was young, working double shifts to keep food on the table. And now Jason was wounding Daniel by being present in his own life, by having friends and priorities and a world that didn't revolve around his father's unspoken needs. The cycle turns, Daniel thought, everyone hurts everyone, we just keep trying to hurt each other less. He was sitting in the living room, photo album open on his lap when he heard the front door open. He glanced at his watch, 11:52 p.m., earlier than promised, actually. Dad, Jason's voice called out, you still up? In here. Jason appeared in the doorway, still wearing his school jersey, face paint smudged, hair wild. He was smiling that post-victory smile, all adrenaline and joy, and Daniel felt his heart squeeze. Dad, you should have seen it. Brady made this incredible play in the final 30 seconds and Jason stopped, his eyes landing on the photo album. What's that? Just looking at some old pictures. Jason moved closer, his excitement dimming into curiosity. He sat on the arm of the couch, looking down at the open page. Maria, hugely pregnant, laughing at something off camera. Mom, Jason said softly. He didn't remember her, not really. She died when he was 10 months old, a brain aneurysm that gave no warning, showed no mercy, left no time for goodbyes. Yeah, Daniel said, I was thinking about her today, thought maybe I'd share some stories with you. Cool, Jason said, but his attention was already drifting, his phone buzzing with what were undoubtedly messages from his friends, the night's triumph being replayed and celebrated in group chats and social media posts. Daniel closed the album. You should get to bed, it's late. Yeah, I'm wiped, Jason stood, stretched. Hey, we still on for this weekend for your event thing? We'll see, Daniel said, might not be necessary anymore. Dad, I promised I'll be here, just tell me when. I'll think about it. Jason hesitated, and for a moment Daniel thought he saw a flicker of concern cross his son's face. But then Jason's phone buzzed again and the moment passed. "Okay, well, good night, Dad, love you." "Love you too, son." Jason disappeared upstairs, and Daniel sat alone with the photo album and the quiet house and the birthday that had come and gone unmarked, uncelebrated, unacknowledged. He should have felt sorry for himself, should have felt angry or hurt or some sharp named emotion. But what he felt instead was a strange, resigned sadness, the kind that comes from recognizing a truth you've been avoiding. His son was growing up, growing away. Not cruelly or unusually, but naturally, inevitably, as all children must. And Daniel's job was to let him go while keeping the door open, to release while staying reachable, to accept that he was no longer the center of Jason's universe while remaining a steady presence in its orbit. The birthday didn't matter, not really. What mattered was that in trying to create a moment, Daniel had forgotten that moments couldn't be manufactured or demanded. They emerged from honest connection, from genuine presence, from showing up not just physically but emotionally, from speaking truth instead of hiding behind vague invitations and unspoken expectations. Tomorrow, Daniel decided he would tell Jason the truth, not to make him feel guilty but to model something important, that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that asking for what you need wasn't selfish, that love required honesty even when honesty felt risky. He would say, "Yesterday was my birthday and I wanted to spend it with you because I love you and because there are things I want to share with you about your mother and about becoming a man and about the life I hope you build for yourself." And maybe Jason would feel terrible for missing it. Maybe he'd apologize profusely, promise to do better. Or maybe he'd just shrug the way teenagers do, unable to fully grasp the weight of what their parents carry until they're parents themselves. Either way, it would be honest, real, a bridge instead of a wall. Daniel carried the photo album upstairs, passing Jason's closed door where he could hear his son on the phone, voice animated, reliving the game's final moments. He didn't knock, didn't interrupt, just smiled sadly and continued to his own room. In the bathroom mirror, he examined his 53-year-old face, the gray at his temples, the lines around his eyes, the evidence of years spent working and worrying and trying to be enough. "Happy birthday," he whispered to his reflection. Downstairs, his phone buzzed one more time. He ignored it, climbing into bed, pulling the covers up, letting the day finally end. He didn't see the message that had just arrived, sent from Jason's phone at 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes before his birthday officially ended. "Dad, Brady's mom just told me today was your birthday. I'm so sorry. Can we talk tomorrow? I feel terrible." The message sat unread in the darkness, a small offering of awareness, a crack in the wall through which light might eventually shine. But for tonight, Daniel slept and Jason lay awake one floor below, finally understanding what an event had really meant.